Hey, I'm Ethan. Welcome to the Midnight Show. Tonight I'm going to show you guys how I made my personal website where I showcase all my creative work from my designs to my photography to my short films and etc. To be honest, I just thought it'd be really cool to have my own website. That's how I start most things really. I just see someone else do it and think, wow, that's cool that they can do that. Now I want to do that. And then it happens. When I started, I did kind of just think of it as something to do for shits and giggles and not really take it that seriously. But as I continued to work on it, I thought more about how I could use it professionally. I thought it would be a nice way to have a creative portfolio available in case people ever wanted to know, and it could also help with boosting my credibility when I'm doing creative work for future clients. So yeah, I thought it was a good idea. The first step was to figure out how I even start doing this, because I had no clue how this was supposed to go. So I got on YouTube and just typed in how to build a website. I listened to some YouTubers and creators and small business owners about what they did to make their website and what they would recommend for me to do, as well as some advice that they had that they thought was important for someone who's never made a website before. Now, there were a lot of great choices of website builders, and there was one in particular that I had heard about on countless occasions from a multitude of YouTubers and sponsorships, and that is, as most people know,
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
This episode has been brought to you by Squarespace.
This video was supported in part by Squarespace.
This episode
is brought to you by
Squarespace.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
This week's video is brought to you by Squarespace.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
This video was made possible by Squarespace.
I'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this week's episode.
This episode was brought to you by Squarespace.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
Brought to you by Squarespace.
Squarespace.
Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace. Squarespace.
but I went with Wix. Now, the reason I chose a website builder that I've never heard of before instead of the one that has been constantly shoved down my throat by a million YouTube videos is because of one simple reason. It's free. And Squarespace is not. Squarespace is very well known and from what I've heard is very easy to use and has done wonders for people. But when you got a budget, then you got a budget, and my budget is zero. So I went with Wix because although its free plan doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Squarespace does, it is a reputable website builder that is simple enough to use once you get the hang of it, and most importantly, it's free. Wix does offer a premium plan for if you want to create a domain name for yourself and also get more features, as well as get rid of that stupid ass ugly banner that they put on top of your website if you don't pay for it. But yeah, that's not really something I'm going to consider right now unless I really wanted to start taking this website seriously. Well, more seriously than I am already taking it. The next thing I needed to worry about was how I wanted this website to look and work. So I went to a couple websites that I thought somewhat fitted the style and function that I wanted, and I took inspiration from those. Some of the websites that I took ideas from were Jamie Windsor, Matt Diavella, Asia Orlando, Thomas Jordan, Fan Ho, and Zara. All of these websites except for Zara are from artists and YouTubers that I love and learn a lot from. Most of them use their website for showing their work, finding clients, and selling their products. And all of that is kind of what I'm applying to my website aside from the selling products part, for now at least. But yeah, that's where I got the ideas from. Now, the way Wix is set up is you can either use this questionnaire called Addy, shout out to Addy by the way, to choose what you want your website to do and how it should look, or you can go the template route and pick from a selection of pre-made websites to customize and make your own. The template route seems simpler and more of me just picking what I think looks good instead of like designing it from scratch, so that's what I went with. I looked through a bunch of templates for photography and design, and I settled on this one created by Sophie Chamberlain. So shout out to Sophie Chamberlain too. Thanks for the website. It had a very minimalistic and elegant design, and I thought that would work well with the creative work I'm trying to show. It also had a white background, which I thought would be important because I didn't want the background color to end up clashing with any art piece or any photo that was going to be on my website. So I thought something neutral and plain would be the best choice. Next step was to get familiar with the tools, which I must admit had me stressing for a bit because there is kind of a learning curve, and Wix doesn't really do much in the way of helping you learn all the buttons and their functions, so you kind of just have to test and figure them out for yourself, and hopefully slowly develop an understanding of how everything works. I'm not sure if this is the case for every website builder, but the way Wix's pages work is kind of like an actual book with actual pages, in the sense that if the main page at the top is like an interactive table of contents, then the main pages are like the chapters where you can see, well, the other pages. If that makes sense, of course. I'm hoping that's a good enough analogy. Also, the way pages work is quite interesting because they can actually exist and never be seen by anyone if there's no way to access them. The way they're accessed is by linking some sort of button or icon or image or whatever item to the page, and then when a person clicks that said item, it takes them to that page. So, pretty neat. Moving on, the way I organize my main menu is in the categories of my creative work, starting with designs, then photography, then short films, music, YouTube, and finally my about page. Before adding in my designs, I had to choose which ones can go and which ones I have to leave out. I took out the ones that had copyrighted work, as well as all the video style designs, just because I wanted it to be simple and only contain like images. After cataloging all my designs, I added them into what Wix calls their galleries. The gallery is basically a bunch of images, GIFs, or videos in a pattern that you can customize. After adding all the designs and their titles, I linked them to separate pages that would show you the full collection. Next, I used Sophie's project page template to create each page. I added them all to have a gallery of the collection, as well as a title and a brief description. And that's pretty much everything for the design page. So for the photography page, I pretty much did the same exact thing that I did with the design page, since it pretty much was organized into collections and had pre-existing titles and all that. I didn't really exclude any photos since none of them contained copyrighted material, but for the photos that had my friends in them, I did have to ask for their permission to have their photos on my website. I hope I didn't startle them, because I kind of did just text them at like 1 or 2 a.m. asking, hey, can I put these photos of you on my website? With zero context, because before that text, I never even once mentioned to them that I was creating a website. So I hope I didn't startle them. After doing the photography page, I did make some minor adjustments to how it's styled. Sophie's template makes the images a matte pink when you hover over it, and I wanted to change that to just have it be a blur of the image whenever you're hovering over them. I also centered the text instead of having it in the corner, just because I like that more, and I also rounded the corners because I thought that had more of a professional look to it. I think Google does that a lot. Apple sure does for like everything. I don't know if I really like how that looks yet. I might change that back, I don't know, or change it to something else. We'll see how that goes. But that's pretty much everything for photography. There wasn't much to talk about for this one since it was pretty much rinse and repeat of the design page, but that was pretty nice because I was able to just put on my music and zone out for a couple hours and let my mind kind of just drift off while I uploaded and edited photos in a very routine pattern. Now, I was originally planning to just finish the whole website and then make this one longer video, but I started to kind of lose motivation for working on it, so I decided to switch gears and make a part 1 video for starting the first 2 pages, and then I'll make a part 2 where I show myself making the short films and music page, which I already have a lot of good ideas for, so I'm excited to bring that into fruition. Anyways, I started wrapping up and making temporary final adjustments, starting with editing the phone version because that's a thing. Of course, most website builders do put in big consideration for how your website will look and function on a smartphone, and Wix in particular does do a really good job at making the right adjustments for it to properly work on a phone in a fluid manner, while also matching the aesthetic and style of your website. For mine, I did have to resize the text of my hamburger menu so it properly fits the title of the pages. I also changed the gallery's layout to only show one image at a time, kind of like Instagram's layout. I did this so each image would take up more of the screen and hopefully draw your attention better. Another thing I did was remove this scroll up button that Wix puts by default because I just thought it was unnecessary to have, and it was kind of ugly and in the way no matter what icon you use, so yeah, I just got rid of it. The last thing I adjusted was the margin space between the sides of the screen and the images, just so it wouldn't feel too tightly packed or too far in. Now, for the short films and music pages, I put a coming soon title in the center of each page, just to let y'all know that I am still working on it and will have it done, hopefully by the end of November. Don't quote me on that though. I did do the about page though, and wrote a brief description of myself, my website, my YouTube channel, and my creative work experience. I also added a profile pic, which did take a surprisingly long time since I didn't know if I should use a casual pic or like the ones that were done professionally but are kind of old and they're when I had short hair, or if I should just do an icon or an illustration I made or something else. I don't know. I ended up just using a selfie that I took a few weeks ago, which is super low quality because it was in my room, which doesn't have a lot of light, but you know, it does the job for now, so it's fine. For the social links that are on the top right of the screen or on top if you're using mobile, I switched out the template icons and links and added my own for my YouTube, my Instagram, and my email. Now, the very last thing I had to do was change the footer note to say copyrighted by Ethan Wynn instead of copyrighted by Sophie Chamberlain. And I did do that, but afterwards I tested the website and checked everything, and for some reason the text would end up going all the way down to the bottom of the screen below the footer. I kept moving the page down and readjusting it and moving it back up into the footer, but it would just keep going down over and over again, and it got really annoying, and it was actually like one of the few things from this whole process that was really frustrating, probably just because I was already so close to finishing it, and for some reason this one line of text just wanted to be a pain in the ass for no reason. So I decided to say fuck it and deleted it, so now there's no footer at the bottom, and that means no headache for me, which is great. Once that part was done, I gave everything a quick check and then published it and then called it a night and went to bed. Psych, no I did not. I actually checked it again on my phone while I was in bed, and I noticed a few mistakes were made. Some of the buttons weren't properly set, some page styles were written incorrectly, some of the descriptions had like spelling and grammar errors, just small things like that. So I took note of those things, and then the next morning I went back and made those very slight tweaks, and then all was well. Once I gave it another quick look and was satisfied with what I was seeing, that is when I shared it with you guys on my Instagram and started working on this video. And that pretty much wraps this whole thing up. I hope seeing this experience was just as fun for you as it was for me. I really liked how it turned out. I'm really proud of what I did here. My coworkers were really sweet, saying stuff like, oh, so you like official now, okay, I see you. Hey, no, shit like that. It was really nice of them just to have their support, you know? And of course, it helps a lot in terms of motivation when I have y'all support. So please, if you enjoyed, give this video a like. If you like the content that I make, please subscribe. I will see y'all again once this website is complete, and that is all for tonight. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Have a good night.